writers, you're listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we bring you insights and inspiration for growing your self-publishing business, coming to you from Kobo's headquarters in Toronto.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kobo Writing Life podcast. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Chrissy. And in this episode, we had the chance to talk with an author virtual assistant. And her name's Melissa. She's actually currently working for a company called Book+Main Inc. But her history in the industry, it comes from supporting authors. So we had the chance to learn all kinds of things like what author VAs can do for you as an author to help you streamline your business to, what a VA job can look like if, for example, you might be looking for a side gig.
Could be me. I don't know. I learned a lot. Who knows?
Who knows? But we think there's a really great lesson in this episode in terms of don't try to do the things that you are not the best at doing. It's good to maybe do them once and see. You might surprise yourself. But if you are not the person that you would maybe hire or pay to do a task, think of your publishing business as a business and outsource where you can. Save yourself the headache so you can do what you love, especially writing.
And people love to help on certain things. So you might find someone who's the best at Facebook. You never know.
You never know. So thank you so much as ever for listening. We hope you love this episode.
Hi, I'm Melissa Saneholtz. I am a partner for Book+Main Inc. I've worked in the publishing industry since 2011 officially. I've worked as a virtual assistant, a publicist, and I am a mom of 3 kids under the age of 9, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Heyo, another Ohioan. I'm from Cleveland.
Awesome. Cold.
It was also cold here, so we feel your pain. It's a super chilly week in Toronto.
It sure is.
So for anyone who is listening who might be a little bit newer to the independent publishing world, can you define what an author VA is?
Absolutely. So an author VA is really, in a lot of aspects, the right-hand man or woman to the author. It's really helping them stay on task and organized and fulfilling some of the tasks that need to be completed in order for an author to really focus on writing, which is what their hopes are, that they can create more, books for readers to enjoy.
So how did you land this job? Like, how did you first hear about it? Did someone approach you? How did you get into this side of publishing?
Good question. So I was working in corporate America doing sales and marketing, and I was an avid reader. I was reading at the time anywhere from 3 to 5 books a week. This is obviously pre-children. And, I loved romance specifically. That's kind of been my focus in the industry. And I started looking for different ways to talk to other romance readers about the books that I was reading. And I stumbled across, the social media realm of the indie population. So a lot of blogs, authors who are very social on Facebook specifically. And I started thinking to myself after months of just talking and really bonding with these people, why don't I do something within this industry? Why don't I take, my career set and the things that I've been doing for years and use them for something that I actually love? So I started a blog, and the blog ran for maybe 4 months. I think within 2 months, I already had 5,000 followers because, back in 2010, people were extremely active, even more so than today, because there weren't all of the algorithms and things that would suppress conversations. And so with that, I was able to quickly make relationships with a lot of authors and readers. And I started looking into ways that I could actually monetize my time. And so I started as a virtual assistant for 2 authors back then. So that's kind of how I got into it.
I love it. I love that you took something that so many people, I love reading, and actually turned it into step 1, the blog, and then step 2, a revenue generating new job for yourself. I feel like kind of like authors, there's a parallel there. There are so many people who say I could do that, or I want to write a book, and then they don't actually do it. That you actually did it and made this a job is amazing.
Yes, my husband did not think that was actually going to be the case. It took a little bit of convincing, but I've never really, to be honest with you, I knew I wanted to have a family and I knew that I didn't want to have to work outside of the home. So I really had been looking for a long time for, different options that would allow me to make money and do it from, my couch.
Right.
And obviously when I stumbled across, Facebook and all, the other social media and just the virtual world in general, it was kind of a no-brainer.
For sure. You started with 2 authors, and then can you fast forward between then and now and what Book+Main is all about?
Sure. So I started with 2, and as of last month, I obviously keep track of everyone I work with. I just did some work for my 154th author.
Wow.
Since then. And by that, it's everything from, virtual assisting, helping organize their calendar, all the way up to, acting as a publicist, creating media kits. So I've done a little bit of everything, but it's really, truly been the stepping stone. The cool thing about this industry is if you start where you're comfortable, you learn so much along the way and you're able to add additional skill sets to your resume. And that's really what I've done. And it opened up the doors to Book+Main, what I do now, which is, an online community for readers to be able to find their next book in a more authentic way. And that from a reader standpoint, and even as a VA for authors, seeing the struggles that they had getting in front of new readers, it was a no-brainer when the founder of Book+Main contacted me as an assistant for other authors. We were just looking at different ways that we could work with her. Her name is Tracy Seppo. And a quick conversation turned into signing an NDA, and 2 hours later in that conversation, I felt like she really understood what, as a reader, I was looking for in a community and in a way to find, why am I willing to spend 2 to 4 hours of my life and, upwards of $5 for an ebook based on a blurb. For me, that wasn't the right way. And she really kind of saw that. And so her idea was awesome. But then having the experience that I had working with authors, I was able to see what their struggles had been getting in front of new readers. And I felt like she had an idea that would completely disrupt the industry and change that. And so I quickly asked if there was any way I could help. And it started as an advisor. And then shortly upon launch, which it was just a year in November, I came on board fully as a partner.
Amazing. So, what kind of new things are you doing with Book+Main, and can you kind of give a summary of that whole project?
Absolutely. So we found, based on the past, several years of being in this community, that romance readers have a very unique behavior. They have very unique reading behaviors. They don't necessarily align with, readers in other genres. We want to talk. When we find a book that we're passionate about, we are very passionate about it, and we want to talk about it. Right. And so it bleeds into the idea of community and really shows like the strength of social media and how it can bring people from, all across the world. I mean, I have met friends who live we have over 100, and we have readers, I should say, in over 150 countries on Book+Main. Mm-hmm. So from 150 different countries, people are tapping in and being able to talk about the book that they just read yesterday and how it affected them. And so we are, we're bringing people together, and we're giving those social media aspects on a site that is solely for us, because the other social media platforms are not. I mean, you have to, authors, when they post something, have to compete with big brands and, politics and everything else that, social media opens up, where Book+Main is solely for the romance community, to where, a lot of times romance readers kind of want to hide. They're not comfortable telling, their neighbor that they read romance. On Book+Main, though, they can come in and they can be completely open about what they were reading last night, because they know everyone's there for the same thing. And then on the flip side, it's giving us a better way to make sure that those hours that we're going to spend and that money that we're going to spend is exactly what we want. I mean, I've heard the term for years, DNF, which is do not finish. And a lot of times you hear when a reader is sent to, Kobo or any retailer and is told, all right, check out, essentially the cover and the blurb, they buy a book based on those two things only to find out, 30% in that it's actually not what they would choose to buy. Whereas on Book+Main, we have things called bites, which are essentially excerpts that the author gets to curate. And so they're picking the best parts of their book that don't give the spoilers away. So the reader is truly, I kind of try to explain it as the difference between you read a blurb, which, just tells you maybe some themes or whatnot, but a bite actually is almost like a movie trailer. It gives you the highlights and reels you in. So by the time you finish that excerpt, clearly, not only does the writing call to you and the authors, the way they write, but it's the book that you're willing to spend any amount of money because you have to know what happens.
Very cool. I love that idea. I've been following along on the sidelines with that story, and it's been really exciting to watch. And it is interesting to be on the retailer side of things where, especially when you get into digital and you don't have a physical book that you can pick up and flip around or
right.
Have it merchandised in the same way. How do you discover new reads? So it's a really interesting niche that you guys are filling in a really cool way.
Yeah, it's been fun, but it's one of those, it's a new platform, it's new technology, and with that comes a learning curve. I've had to step back as, I'm the acting CMO, CSO, and a lot of my day is spent, having author phone calls where I'm walking them through the, best practices of the site. And in a lot of senses, I'm stepping back into a VA position, a virtual assistant position, because authors' time is so limited. And a lot of times it's the difference between, helping them with, quickly walking them through the steps and helping them get those excerpts up and running versus them never doing it because it's too overwhelming to try something new.
Yeah.
So I'm stepping back into, old patterns and old things, which has been kind of fun too, seeing it from that side again.
So thinking back to when you were getting started and all of the VAs that kind of in your circle, can you walk us through what a typical week, as much as you can kind of summarize that, might look like? Because I know every day is certainly different, but maybe what an average week of a VA's life might look like.
Absolutely. So it really depends on the author and what their needs are. I would say that the fair majority of it is going to be funneling through the calendar to see what are the tasks that the VA can take off of the author's plate. So in a lot of instances, it revolves around promotion. Authors nowadays they can't just write. They have to be marketers and they have to be advertisers, and all of these additional, responsibilities and jobs fall on their plate. So the VAs essentially are looking at that to say, all right, what media packet or what information for a media packet needs to be put together and sent to the publicist, or, what excerpts need to be pulled to add to, sites like Book+Main, or what are the things that a blog needs in order to do their promotional pushes. And so they're organizing that information, utilizing various tools like Asana or Airtable or, Google Drive, whatever it is, and putting those things together so that way the author doesn't have to spend time pulling that information.
So you may not have an answer for this.
Yeah, okay.
But what's the weirdest thing you've had to do as an author VA?
Oh, man. That's a really good question. There have been so many strange things, but a lot of times it comes down to, most recently, and like I said, I've kind of stepped out of the VA role, but I still have a lot of author friends who, when it's a stressful week, we may be talking on the phone about other things, and I hear that they really could use an extra hand. It could be, hey, I know that you randomly have some signed books of mine from a, whatever it is, like maybe we were at an author signing and the author had some extra books left over and I drove versus them flying. So I've ended up bringing them back to my house. So I have boxes of random signed books here from authors, and I'll get random messages. Hey, I need to send this book out. Do you happen to have that laying around your house? Could you do it for me? And so, little errands that you just don't even know that you're going to be doing. there have been times when, there have been authors who've experienced, baby showers that they forgot to get gifts for. So, hey, would you mind doing my shopping? So I've ended up being a personal shopper. There have been times when I've actually had to order food for an author to have delivered to their homes. I've had to actually search, care.com for, nannies and whatnot. You name it, like I've pretty much done it, I think.
Nothing off limits.
Nothing. No. So those are the most obvious ones that happen most often. But being virtual, it's easy to do those things.
For sure. And for most, like logistically, for most of your clients, are you on like an hourly consultant basis, or I'm sure that's changed over the course of your career?
Yeah, I think it depends on, the individual author's budget and what they're looking for. I mean, I know personally, I myself have worked in several different ways. I've worked on an hourly basis at times. I've worked on, a flat rate at other times for a specific amount of, hours per month, or at least a range of hours. And I think that's pretty typical for most VAs that I speak to. It's not usually one or the other. It's a combination depending on the author's needs. But more times than not, what I hear is typically a flat rate for the entire month for a designated range of hours. Mm-hmm. Budgeting too.
Is this something someone could do part-time? Or
Absolutely.
like
asking for a friend?
Asking for someone who's maybe sitting here.
Absolutely. I can tell you that the majority of VAs that I know are working this part-time. They are stay-at-home moms or dads, or they have careers. A lot of teachers do this. A lot of teachers act as VAs, especially in the summer, because, they have that extra time. And, authors at various times of the year have busier schedules. And so for an author, if they're trying to do, the typical family summer vacations and they need to be away and they need that extra help, it's a perfect job for, a teacher for sure. But yeah, most VAs that I know are part-time. I think I've only VA'd once on a full-time capacity, like for one author.
So when you think back to all of these years working with authors, what would you say that you love the most and find the most rewarding about your role?
It's kind of a two-part thing. I mean, the knowledge that I've gained, having a background in PR and marketing is one thing, but this industry is very niche, and things are different. And so really having the different roles within the community and just the different perspective, because every author and every author career is different. And so I think that it's just helped me really understand this industry, and it's helped me be able to do my job as a CMO within Book+Main just in a much larger. It would be hard for someone just with a PR and marketing background to come into Book+Main and really get this industry. And so the perspective it's given me is great. And the friendships, honestly, more than anything, it's unlike any other industry in the sense that like you really bond with the people that you work with and that you help. And it gives you that sense of at the end of the night, I made a difference because I could hear the anxiety decrease in that author's voice, from the beginning of the morning to the end, because I was truly able to take a load off of their shoulders.
If someone's unsure about getting a VA, what do you think that you could bring to an indie author's business?
Just the time it gives you. I mean, the authors that I know who had never had a VA before and tried it found that their productivity with, writing just increased tenfold because it freed them up from having to do those tasks that are necessary to run their business, but it's not stuff that's necessary that they do. And then just the time it gives them back. I mean, there were authors who, when I first spoke to them, they were just at their wits' end because between writing and all of the other things that were happening, their family life was really affected. They were having to work, 24/7. And the whole reason that they had originally started writing, not only because they loved to write, but also because they wanted the financial freedom, it wasn't equaling out with the fact that they weren't having any time to actually spend with their family. And so it gave them that back.
Yeah. I would also say a lot of authors will say, don't ever do the things that you wouldn't pay yourself to do. Like if you're not the most skilled person in that task, it often makes sense to think about outsourcing that thing. So whatever that means, social media, ads, cover design, copy, like all of the stuff that could be professionalized should
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Don't reinvent the wheel. If someone else can do it better, let them do it. It's worth the lack of frustration for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned one of your favorite things is what you've learned along the way. What are some of the key learnings that you think would benefit our indie author listener base?
Just kind of put your head down. Focus on the things that you love. You love to write, so write. Don't get dragged into, the other things that can happen that, social media. And when you're putting yourself out there, you're opening yourself up to criticism, period. And so my biggest advice truly, and from what I've witnessed firsthand from so many authors, is just write, do what you love, do the things that you can, and don't put yourself in a position to, get dragged into the parts that you don't need to see. Like what someone thought of my book, truly, to me, if I were a writer, I don't need to know that. I think, what Rachel Hollis, the author, recently had said, it's not my business what you think about me. I think that's like a key thing to do. Just keep
totally agreed.
Yeah. And I probably butchered her words, but that's what she was trying to say, though, is, it's just none of my business what you think of me. And I think that's, a key thing to keep in mind when you're putting yourself out there. People are always going to have an opinion, and it's not always going to be flattering, but you can't let that dictate, how you write your next book. Like, just stay true to yourself.
Amazing advice. I love it.
So you said you're a big romance fan, but what are you reading right now? Or maybe you have some favorite books that you tell everyone you need to read this immediately.
I am a huge romance fan, but I do a lot of beta reading. So I read alongside, as the author is writing, and a lot of it is contemporary. And so when I'm doing that on a consistent basis, sometimes I need to escape the romance world, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say my true love is YA fantasy. So I'm actually reading Sarah Holland right now. She's Evermore and Everless. Those books have consumed me. They're really, really good. And Holly Black, a lot of those books.
Yes.
Yes. So that would be what I've been reading most recently. In the contemporary romance world, I've been reading a lot of Corinne Michaels, L.J. Shen, Ava Harrison is another good author. It's never ending. Every single day, there are so many authors that are releasing incredible books, and I think sometimes romance can be overwhelming in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you go next? So that's another reason why I stepped on board with Book+Main, because it helped me kind of narrow it down. I can actually search specifically for what I want. So if I know that I want a second chance single dad, I just go to Book+Main and I type in second chance single dad, and all of the excerpts that have been tagged with that populate. And then I don't pay attention. It doesn't tell me at that point who actually wrote the book. So I just sample it. And if the writing is great, then I go. Otherwise, I could spend hours looking through. I have them with the BOGO deal that you guys have going on right now. I've spent hours just going through all of that because there's so many amazing options.
Awesome. I think we'll get this episode out on time in order, to promote that deal. We've got a really awesome buy one, get one free romance sale with over 700 books a month running. It's been doing extremely well, and romance readers are loving it because they're picking up a lot of great new authors they might not have known before.
Yeah, that's a true thing. I had a friend today say that she just bought 5 books and she was going into the catalog. So
love it.
Yeah, it's exciting. Very exciting.
So are you also a writer?
No, I am not. I was back in the day, which is how I kind of stumbled across, I call it the indie community on Facebook, because I was looking, like I said, for ways to talk about books, but then also kind of gauge and see, who are the people, who are the influencers in this community that I need to get to know or I need to follow for when I'm ready to write my book, or not write my book. At that point, I'd already written 2 paranormal romances, which have never seen the light of day and never will, probably, because I've gotten the other, side of the coin where I actually saw the writing, not the writing process, but the publishing process. And no, I'll let that for someone else. I'm good on this side. So those days, those dreams kind of faded, and some new ones within the same industry
It's also great you have that foundation, because going through it, I'm a similar situation. I've written a lot, and I'll do NaNoWriMo sometimes, and, dive in every now and again, write something. But I am not a writer. I don't really have a goal to publish a book. But it's good to have that background, because you really understand the struggle, and it is a really unique struggle. And the reward of finishing a book and then putting it out into the world, like, there's a very serious number of steps that get from start to end. And I think if you haven't gone through it, or at least tried, you can't totally understand what that mindset feels like,
And just the amount of time and energy these authors put into, it's not just about writing the book. It's about, all of the steps, like you said, like to actually publish it. And I think that was the eye opener for me, because I was trying so desperately to figure out what those steps were. And back in 2009, when I was doing that research, there wasn't a lot of information. I mean, indie was just starting to happen back then. And so just seeing that process, I mean, as ridiculous as it sounds, I realized I would easily do it for someone else being paid to do it. But for myself, like, not knowing what the end product was going to be, and if all that time and energy was actually going to equate to a paycheck, I wasn't worth figuring it out. Yeah. So I went this route, and I'm happy with it. Yeah. I'm good. I still write, but for myself, and that's it.
So for anyone listening and they're like, I need her in my life, are you taking on any new authors?
Right now, I do work with a couple of people on a contract basis. It's more high-level stuff. I'm probably helping the authors actually find the right people, more so than actually using my own services, just because Book+Main is really, 2019 is 100% our year, and I'm getting extremely busy with that. So I don't really have the time to devote to really doing those other things. However, if an author out there wants, some introductions to some people who are, quality, and they have worked with, many authors and would be great, they're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to make those introductions.
Great. Yeah, that was kind of my follow-up question. Do you recommend word of mouth recommendations above, say, a platform like Upstart, or, some other kind of crowdsourcing platform for finding a VA?
Yeah, I do. And here's why. I mentioned earlier how niche this industry is, and I cannot say that enough. I feel like even with Book+Main, we've had people who have come from, various other, places, and then we've hired within the industry. And there's just something to be said for people who have kind of walk the road with, indie authors and indie readers. They get the industry. And I think, anyone can organize and do other things, but there are so many things that are specific to this industry that it really helps for a VA to actually know those things. And the great news about that is it's easy, though. So anyone who's out there who maybe isn't currently in the publishing industry, but they're, interested in being a VA, just spend some time on the various, social sites, follow some blogs, follow some authors, get involved a little bit in the community, and very quickly you can learn and step into those positions.
Well, you took our final question right from under us. Thank you. You anticipated exactly where we're going. Yeah, great for anybody who's thinking about looking into VA opportunities potentially. And I agree. It's such a open community that any new person can jump in and be welcomed and, learn. If you're willing to learn, I find that it's a very welcoming, great place to be.
Absolutely. And I think the cool part about it is there are VAs that work with authors who are amazing and exceptional, and they come from all walks of life. I mean, we have, people who have master's degrees who just, are trying to raise families and just want that part-time job. We have people who, have high school diplomas and, never actually made it on, but they know the industry inside and out, and they're well organized, and they're dependable, and they're doing good. We have people who, are actually in college right now, or they're even high school students who are trying to get that leg up. I mean, there are truly so many opportunities here, and it doesn't matter. You don't have to have any certain criteria in order to do this job outside of being organized and being dependable.
Organized and dependable. I love it. Last but not least, on a very pragmatic level, from a flat rate kind of average, if you're looking for a VA from an author perspective, how much should they expect to spend on someone who is qualified?
Yeah, I think that's such a hard question to answer because it really depends on what the author is really looking for. I mean, we have authors who are just using, VAs for very, they're just doing their mailings, or they're doing giveaways. They're sending ebook giveaways out or whatever it is, and they may be paying $10 an hour. On the flip side, there are authors who are using VAs at a higher skill level, maybe former marketing majors, or people who have some graphic design, in which you're going to pay a premium charge for that. It really depends on what it is you're looking for. If you want people with a very specified skill set, then you're talking about upwards of $25 an hour to get that. It depends on what you want as the author.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually. So good to have a bit of a framework for what to expect, and you get what you pay for in terms of skill set and knowledge base.
It's true. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Any final things that we didn't mention that you think our indie author listeners should know about you, or about Book+Main, about VAs, or anything about the writing and reading world, if we take it really broad?
Well, it's probably a two-part thing. If you are listening to this and you're thinking that, a VA is something that would really help make your life easier, stop thinking about it and do it, because it truly does make a difference. I have never talked to an author who made the jump to get a VA and regretted it. And on the flip side, I've talked to plenty of authors who, have made reasons why not to do it and wish they would have done it much sooner. So that's kind of that portion of it. And then in terms of Book+Main, I think this goes for anything. This industry right now is very competitive. There are so many amazing, incredible authors, and you have to take chances on things, especially when it comes to marketing and promotions, and going back to, letting the experts kind of like take the wheel for you. Book+Main right now is free for authors. It's, there's nothing against trying. And the cool thing about bites are it's truly, there's no shelf life. So you post something today and there are readers who are finding, these excerpts from authors from a year ago, and they're actually getting to taste your work. So they're judging your work based on your work as opposed to your name or, what your rank was on any given platform. And so it's right now, truly speaking, 2019 is Book+Main's year. So I highly recommend, if you thought about it or you haven't looked into it, give it a go, because, the early people who embraced Facebook as a way to connect with their readers, I think saw a huge advantage. And I see Book+Main providing the same opportunity for authors, and on an even bigger level, because it's specific to romance authors.
Awesome.
That's
and we'll
it.
all those links in the show notes for people, for romance authors and readers who want to check that out and see what you guys are up to next. Really exciting.
Yeah, tons of cool stuff. So yeah, always check back, even if they haven't been there for a while. Guaranteed things have changed. It's a startup. So we are, startups are a whole different conversation is what I'm trying to say. That's it, guys. I appreciate you having me on and talking about the whole process.
We really, really loved hearing from you. It's a unique perspective that we haven't had on the show yet. So thank you. It's obviously a hugely important aspect of a lot of our listeners' lives, or it could have a huge impact on improving their business going forward. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today.
I've learned so much.
And maybe your career.
Could be.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if your friend needs more information, you have my email.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you.
So we hope you enjoyed our interview with Melissa. Make sure to check out the blog for links to what we talked about in the episode.
Yeah, and if you want to share your experience working with a virtual assistant or working as a virtual assistant, I'm interested. Yeah, we would really love to hear. So post them in the blog, throw them up on Twitter, whatever works for you. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you didn't know, Rakuten Kobo has an Emerging Writer Prize, and you can win $10,000 in cash.
That's pretty exciting. I wouldn't mind a cool 10 grand. Yeah, it's for Canadian writers specifically. So if you are not Canadian, but you know one, encourage them to get all the details online. And one of our authors, Dale Mayer, Kobo Writing Life author, is a judge this year. So we're extra excited for her to be digging into our special category. We always do a couple categories with one genre focus, and it's romance. So we are certain there are some romance authors listening out there.
And just again, so to qualify, authors must be Canadian citizens or permanent residents of Canada with debut, full-length books, or collections of short stories published in 2018.
Yeah, so if that's you, please apply. We would love to see your names in the mix. We've had a Kobo Writing Life author win in the past, Nicola White. So that's really exciting stuff. We are also, as ever, on the road a lot in the next month. So if you are at an indie conference, we want to see you. Come and find us. I, Chrissy, will be at the very last Smarter Artist Summit in Austin, and Tara Kremen will be in Colorado Springs at the Superstars of Writing. I am sure our European colleagues will be all over the beautiful cities of Italy and, London,
France,
Paris, wherever they are. So
go say hi.
Go say hi. And if you are participating in a great conference and you want to see us there, let us know. We're always looking for new places to connect with great authors. So thank you. As always, bit of a ramble there. Oof.
Can't be helped. We're busy.
What can you do? We're a busy bunch, and as you are too. So thanks for taking your precious time to spend with us today. We hope you have a great writing week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Kobo Writing Life podcast, where we provide insights and stories from leaders and experimenters in the world of self-publishing.
If you want even more information about growing your Kobo sales, check out our blog or find us on social.
And if you're just finding us and ready to start your self-publishing journey today, sign up for free at kobo.com/writinglife. Until next time, happy writing!